I don't understand why the Bellsline Road has been sort of put on the back burner, so to speak. It really should be a priority for the state and federal government.
I think it shows that quite often governments will look at numbers and not really understand. It hasn't got the forward look. It's addressing the here and now and probably the political expediency where the votes are.
We have a huge amount of produce coming out of the Central West, not just Orange but all over the Central West. And the only way to get that to Sydney at the moment is by road, by trucks. And I mean, the trucks have got bigger over the years. B-doubles have come on board, larger semi-trailers, and they're occupying a bigger space on the road. So I think that, if business could get their produce to the seaboard quicker, and obviously more safe, in a more safe fashion, with less risk to the other road users, then that would have to be a good thing.
I'm disappointed because there has been suggestions of a way forward through the central group of councils, and that suggestion was that even if we don't have the money for the project at the time, and I can understand that because it is a lot of money, we should at least have the easements put through so that the land and the acquisition problems are flagged early.
Well, when you look at the scheme of finances in the federal government field, 2.2 billion is not a lot of money. There was quite some wastage, and without getting too political about it, but there's other programs that have cost far in excess of $2 billion. So really, on the scheme of things, I think it's very affordable. The big thing, as I said before, is trying to get it up the agenda.
What is this costing us in the Central West?
It's costing us an enormous amount of money, or several ways. And one thing I'd just like to highlight is if you mentioned the rail, I think we should refer to the Bells line not as an expressway but as a corridor, a transport corridor, because as you know, freight comes across from West Australia into Parks. They can double stack containers. We can't double stack containers between here and Sydney, for example. If we had that corridor, which would work in with a metropolitan network as well, we would be well advanced, and it wouldn't hold up transport of so many goods and services back to the city for export, because that's where our costs go and blow out. As we know, the commodity itself is not necessarily the price, it's the handling and moving of the commodity that often blows the price out.
You mentioned about the rail, and even when you come to passenger rail, the XPT is not serving the people of the West. The XPT is serving the people of the city. So it comes up in the morning and goes back in the afternoon. So that in itself is a problem. I think the thing that is affecting it most is, of course, we have a huge amount of produce coming out of the Central West, not just Orange, but all over the Central West. And the only way to get that to Sydney at the moment is by road, by trucks. And I mean, the trucks have got bigger over the years. B-doubles have come on board, larger semi-trailers, and they're occupying a bigger space on the road. The big thing is that even though the Great Western Highway through Katoomba has been vastly improved, and that's a great thing, but really I've always been of the opinion that if anything happened along that road, the amount of traffic that would have to be channeled through Bellsline Road would be impossible. And I think the other thing I've travelled that road a lot of times. I grew up in the Currajong-Richmond area, and my family is still there, so over the 30 years I've travelled it a lot of times. Haven't seen a lot of improvements, and I think one of the most important things they need to do, even straight away, is to put some more passing lanes in there, because it really is difficult once you get stuck behind a truck or a slow vehicle.
I think it shows that quite often governments will look at numbers and not really understand them. And what I say by that, what I mean by that, is if you look at where the money's invested currently, it's on the north coast, between Sydney and, if you like, the Queensland border. To some extent south, probably as far as Port Kembla or a bit further down, Dapto, down those areas. And that investment is based on just population growth. I think you've really got to be a little cleverer than that and look at the population demographics. A lot of the population growth on coastal areas, for example, is retirees and people at that end of life. And sure, they've got to have services and facilities. Also on that end is younger people that are out there in their teen years that often don't have work. I think we have the opportunity, because there is work out here. We struggle sometimes, as you know, to get people to work and expertise that we need out here. So the investment, I think, is probably wrong in that it hasn't got the forward look. It's addressing the here and now and probably the political expediency where the votes are, but it's not necessarily looking at the longer term.
It's amazing, you know, and whichever government is in power, it's really about their priorities. And the New South Wales Business Chamber has the road infrastructure very high on its priorities. In fact, it forms part of the 10 big ideas for the Central West. So, you know, we're very keen to see something happening. Whether it's the Labor government or the Liberal government, I don't know that it matters a lot. It's about getting it up the agenda by whoever's in power. And of course, it always comes back to money. And you know, the federal government seems to be able to put money into all sorts of buckets. So we would like to see them put some money into the Bells Line Road bucket.
I think that we don't necessarily use our strongest point, and that is the fact that last time I looked, there's not a lot of mines in George Street, there's not a lot of mines in Blacktown, there's not a lot of mines at Port Macquarie. But this state and this nation currently is financed on commodities. Those commodities come from, in the main, regional Australia. That's why I think we're quite entitled to ask for more investment in regional Australia, because this boom that we're currently experiencing is underwriting a lot of other industry. I think we should be working with Cadia and other industry, and by the way, some of our cousins further out that also have mining industry, and saying to the government, look, this is an investment. The mining industry needs support in infrastructure as well. They're providing the revenue. You need to sort of take a fresh look. But the council needs to make those statements, not as an individual council, but as a collective of councils.
Through Central. What's going to happen if this drags on another 20 years and doesn't come to pass?
I don't think we can afford to let it drag on another 20 years, and I say that for the reason that we're in a reasonably strong position, because as I said, with the funding that's coming out of the mining commodities, not only in Orange, we know there's going to be big mines in Kings Plains at Bathurst. We know there's going to be other mines opening up. There's more mines opening up in Mudgee. We're in a position where we have some power and clout now. Maybe in 25 or 30 years we won't have it. So now's the time to move on it, because we should be saying to the government, you need to make this investment now in the Central West, because when the mining industry and commodity industry slows down, and it will, surely will, we need that infrastructure here so that we can sustain the areas and continue to develop. What we don't want to see is this area go through a boom-bust cycle, which is characteristic of a lot of countries' economies, and particularly the mining industry.
What's going to happen to this area if say another 20 years are waiting for that expressway?
Well, yeah, I guess that's a crystal ball question, and it's if we're waiting, the traffic on the Great Western Highway isn't going to drop. It's going as the popularity of the Central West as either a produce area and a tourism area, and I mean, let's face it, the tourism numbers are well up, which is a great thing. It's going to only increase the amount of traffic. So we certainly need a second alternative road. The thing that will bring it right to the top, and dare I say it, will be a tragedy. If something tragic happens on the Bells Line Road, then all of a sudden the attention will be there, the media will be onto it, and we need the media to help. But that's the unfortunate part about it. It will only get the top priority if something drastic happens.